Molly Gordon from Shaboom Inc. is my guest today, and I'm so excited to have her. I've been following her for forever. When she came out, I think probably 6 or 7 years ago with The Accidental Entrepreneur, I think so many people can recognize themselves as an accidental entrepreneur. Molly, welcome to the show. Will you tell me what it means to be an accidental entrepreneur?
Well, it's really very simple. An accidental entrepreneur is someone who loves what they do. They decide to work for themselves, doing what they love, but they didn't ever really plan on being an entrepreneur. They didn't think about it in terms of going into business or starting a business to sell or any entrepreneurial thing. They just wanted to do their work.
And now suddenly they have to keep books and learn how to market and learn how to sell. And I know that you do coaching. Is there one theme that goes through the people that find themselves entrepreneur? I know for me, my clients are all in overwhelm. Is there a theme, or is it overwhelm for your clients as well?
Well, there's a lot of overwhelm, and what I find is most overwhelming is the belief that they have to be a different kind of person to succeed in business. And when you believe that, everything is a whole lot harder.
Yeah, it's like we're taught and we're told, especially with social media now, that you have to do it a certain way.
Right.
And your work's all about being authentic.
Right. And many of the people I work with they believe that there are people with the business gene and there are people with the creative gene and or the heart-centered gene, and that the creative and heart-centered genes don't mix with the business gene, which you and I know is just not true.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're an artist and a very successful entrepreneur. And I notice, at least on Facebook, where I follow you a lot, that you're back, maybe you never left it, but you're expressing a lot of creativity right now and trying out some new things in a personal level, right?
Right.
So does that, taking time away from your business, does that help your business? I kind of know the answer because I read one of your blogs, so tell me.
Well, I believe it does because, in a lot of ways, taking time away to do cartooning and watercolor frees up my mind. Most of all, it gives me access to a place to a nice feeling, a deeper feeling. And when I'm in that place, creativity flows, wisdom flows, insight flows, and when I'm in a nice feeling, I'm ready to try things. That's the other thing. I've never done cartooning. I'm not a visual artist in the sense of painting or drawing. And to do these things, which I've never done, it's just very freeing. There's nothing to lose. And I think that attitude serves us in business as well.
And I think when you allow yourself to be creative, that overwhelm kind of goes away a little bit, doesn't it?
Right.
For me, I have to clear my mind, and what clears my mind is a long walk. Not like a quick 10-minute power walk. It's got to be like an hour and a half walk to get rid of all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But then I feel really creative.
Yeah. It's just not efficient to try to make decisions, to try to work, to try to create programming. It's just not efficient to do that from within overwhelm. And it's counterintuitive to a lot of people, but the most efficient thing to do is spend less time working on your business and more time cultivating that nice feeling and that creativity. And then you can be very efficient when you come back to business.
I love that. Now you say something, I have to look it up so I get it exactly. I used to knit with fibers. Now I knit with the threads of ontological coaching and embodied intelligence.
Yeah.
You have to tell me what that means.
Okay. Well, ontological coaching is coaching at the level of who we see ourselves to be in the world. So rather than working with changing externals or even changing attitudes, it's working with what is my fundamental understanding of the nature of human experience. and applying. Well, actually, Michelle, I'm kind of halting here because my understanding has really developed since ontological coaching. But ontological coaching is working what we call at the level of the observer. So rather than working out here in the world where I take action to get a result, it's to back up from here. The observer I am determines the actions that are available to me to get a result.
So would that be, let's pretend that I was your client, would that be me observing me or you observing me?
Both.
It sounds very, coming from a very spiritual centered place more.
Well, it's definitely from a centered place, and I think it's spiritual. It can be a very, secular thing because it's really the observer I am. To me, to explore that as a spiritual thing, but you don't need to have a spiritual understanding in order to accomplish that.
Yeah, for me, it's whenever I step deeper inside of myself to see myself from the outside, which is what I hear you saying. It's that dichotomy.
Exactly.
So you said your understanding of that has grown over the years. So tell me where you are now with it.
Well, where I am now is even more fundamental than self-observation is understanding that we're always experiencing our thoughts. That even now, I'm not actually reacting to Michelle. I'm reacting to my thinking in this moment. And that when I can see that, I am less distracted or stressed or caught up in whatever may be feeling negative in the moment. And when I that when I see that, I also naturally, I'm inclined to experience more of that good feeling or fundamental sense of well-being from which I have access to wisdom and insight and creativity. So even rather than trying to change myself as an observer, it's more to realize that I am creating this experience through observation and that it's a no-fault situation. I don't have any control over what thought puppies come in here. But I have free will to decide which thought puppies to play with and which to just kind of let go into their corner and wait them out.
When you talk about that, even the way that you talk about it made me sort of relax into my chair, take a deep breath. I'm like, oh, we should just ask everybody to take a deep breath. Now I sort of just went into that place with you.
Yes.
Running my business from this place is going to be so much less stressful.
Absolutely.
Than the place that most of us run our business from,
Absolutely.
Which is our huge to-do list.
Yeah. And you were asking me earlier, what is the theme that runs through my work with accidental entrepreneurs? I think another way to say that theme is that they intuitively know that it's not effective to come from an overwhelmed and stressed out place. And yet, because of cultural messages about success, they believe they have to exert a lot of effort and that overwhelm just goes with the territory. And so a lot of my work with them is to help them connect with this good feeling, trust it, and as we were saying earlier, when you're in overwhelm, go for a walk.
Right. I think, Molly, trust, it's stuck in my throat. Even saying the word starts getting stuck there. And, I've done this sort of work for a long time. I understand what you're talking about intellectually, and then I go to have a conversation with you, and I can even feel that I get a little stressed. I have to trust that it's okay to relax. Wait a minute, I have people calling me. I have Facebook and Twitter and messages to return and things to sell and launches to do and interviews to edit. And right? So how can we learn to really trust That it's okay to do less to get more done.
Right. Well, my understanding, Michelle, is that those feelings of pressure and concern and, oh my God, I've got to, how am I going to balance Facebook? I've got to edit these interviews. That those feelings that come with those thoughts are an infallible indicator that temporarily our thinking has dropped to a lower level of consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's not personal,
Right.
It's a human nature. It
Right.
goes up and down. So I just understand now, because it happens to me too. It's like, what am I going to offer next week? How am I going to write my newsletter? I need to do this, that, and the other thing. I shouldn't be on Facebook. I should be on Facebook. I just understand that when I'm feeling that way, it's an indicator that my level of consciousness has dropped. And with that understanding, I know that if I just step back, that's more efficient, that my level of consciousness will automatically rise, and that given that, I will then be efficient. It's just experience. When I really reflected on my experience, I thought, duh, this is the way it works. Mm-hmm. So I still get those feelings, absolutely. Then I notice, oh, I'm not actually reacting to Facebook and editing, etc. I'm reacting to my thinking, mm-hmm. perfectly normal and temporarily not so smart.
Right. I love that. Temporary insanity.
Yeah, I just don't take it personally. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because, and what I've been taught in the past is to get in there and transform it, work with it. And what comes to me is that's like wrestling with my thinking. Mm-hmm. And that image of wrestling, it's like as soon as you get your hands around your opponent, you're stuck together. So that thought can't go anywhere because you're
right.
holding on to it for dear life. And if I just let go, it's going to change.
I love what you're saying, because there's an element, too, that we don't have to better ourselves, or we don't have to become different than who we are.
Absolutely.
We just have to understand who we are.
Yep.
And what I hear you saying is just being aware. That's enough very often.
It is.
For the change. I love
That's
that.
enough. Yep. I love to, just let's put an end to serial self-improvement.
Yeah. I'm with you. Thank you. Right. Yeah. So going to the entrepreneurs, back to that for a minute. Mm-hmm. And so we understand we need to be in this place and we calm down. But there are some things that we sort of have to do to keep our business going, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So what things do you recommend for people? Like, I know you blog and you're on Facebook. Do you recommend those blanket things for everybody, or do you find that certain things work for certain people?
Certain things work for certain people. I've spent many years and tens of thousands of dollars learning copywriting and internet marketing and speaking and presentations, and all of that's really good information. But what I understand now is that information is kind of like technical information. It's what Michael Neal calls engineering.
Right.
And to use that well, I need to go to the level of physics. How are things really working? And what that means to me is I go to that nice feeling. I look at what's natural to me. How do I want to reach people? Because to succeed, you absolutely have to get in front of people. That's just a fact out here in the world of form. But how should you do that? You should do it in a way that feels good to you, where you can be natural, where you can show up with all the delight you have in your work. So it could be blogging. For me, writing has always been, I don't want to say easy, but it's been my preferred. It's a gift. Yeah. And for someone else, it could be, I don't like the word networking, because many people who are great at face-to-face conversations shut down behind that word. But it could be face-to-face conversations. It could be writing articles for your community newspaper. It could be giving presentations and seminars. You could be walking down the street with a sandwich board.
Yeah. I love that. I do some work with marketing archetypes and how Different people kind of fall into specific natural ways of being. And what I find is that it's difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs to just be authentic, to allow themselves to go into this natural place of marketing. And like you're saying, for some people it might be a sandwich board. That's true. There are people that love to just go out and say, here I am.
Exactly.
And others are like, oh, just put me behind the computer. But why is it so hard for us to let go of what doesn't serve us and just be authentic? That's a tough one.
Well, we have a lot of models in the world of how business is done, and with mass media, and even before the internet, no problem with Coca-Cola, no disrespect to Coca-Cola, but you see how Coca-Cola markets itself, you see how Tony Robbins markets himself, you see how the big guys do it, and the subtext is you have to do it like them. It's also, and I wrestled with this myself, the nuts and bolts, what I was calling the engineering or the technical parts, are often taught by people who are successful at that bigger business sort of marketing. Mm-hmm. And you absorb not only the best practices, the engineering they teach, but you absorb the voice and the attitude and the posture that they take. And it takes some practice to make those engineering structures your own, so you're speaking with your own voice. Copywriting. There are things to know about copywriting that are really useful. Mm-hmm. But if they take you out of your own voice, forget about it. It's just not helpful. But anyway, it's because the models we have, we think we have to be like them. And we innocently, in the desire to do the best job we can, we step outside of ourselves.
And what I notice is when we do that, when we step outside of ourselves, like if we use somebody else's voice in copywriting, and I've done that years past, where you just take someone else's sales page and you tweak it for yourself. Nobody else resonates with it because people get it's not really you, or there's a disconnect, right?
Yep. And it feels so crummy. Not only are you not getting results, you got results by not being yourself. And it's just like, oh man. And I've done that. I've done it many times.
Yeah. And it doesn't really work.
No. And one of the great things about being yourself, besides the fact that it's more fun, is that when we're ourselves going out in the marketplace, we're engaged in a natural, authentic give and take. And that's how you find out what works for your just right clients, is because it comes back to you. But you can't get real information back to you unless you're being real going out. So it becomes a virtuous cycle when you're yourself.
You said something really important and intriguing a minute ago, which is to be in business, you have to get out there and be with people. Mm-hmm. And I would take that a step further and say, and have to learn how to sell at some level.
Yeah.
If you're in business and you're an entrepreneur, no matter whether you're selling a massage or your art or writing, you have to learn some basic sales. But so many entrepreneurs, especially introverted or quiet entrepreneurs, feel like they don't have to get out there. They can just hide behind their writing.
Right.
Is it enough to just write, or at what point do you have to come out, or how do you show yourself? Speak to this being out in front of people.
Is it enough? On the one hand, it was a watershed moment for me and my business when I understood the difference between marketing and selling. That marketing is becoming known, it's having people be aware, it's sending a message out in the world. But for me, selling is about that one-to-one conversation about how can what I do serve you, and are we a fit, and are we going to do business? And you can sit back behind a screen of marketing, which I did for years, and you'll get some business. Over a period of 3 years, I developed a full coaching practice doing that. However, if you want to if you have product to put out there or programs to fill, if you don't want to wait 3 years for your marketing message to percolate, you do have to engage more directly with people. And I guess I would differentiating selling from marketing by, it's got more of that one-to-one feel, and you're directly asking people, you're making an offer, this is what I do for you, and this is how you can work with me. And you're making it very specific and transactional.
You used a word a minute ago there, serve.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's interesting because I have a component of my Profit Alchemy course, one unit that's about selling as a service. Is when you sell well, you are articulating your service so that the just right client can recognize it, see themselves in that picture, and know how to get to you and what to do to make it happen, how much money it's going to cost. And you ask them, because we all have a gazillion things going on. We all have, whether it's kids or gardens or physical issues, whatever, our products and services are not at the forefront of most of our just right clients' minds. And if we really want to serve them, we have to invite them to make a decision and then ask them to make a decision. And it needs to be, I think it serves to take people along a path to that decision point. Leave them with, the free will to say yes or no, or I'll get back to you later. But if you don't get them to that decision point and ask them to decide, you're not serving them.
Mm. I love that. And my guess is for many accidental entrepreneurs, they are people in maybe a more service or quiet-oriented business, practitioners, artists, those kinds of people who really do want to serve in the world.
Absolutely.
And so if you are, I'm just going to say massage therapist, just use that example, and you want to reach people and help people and serve the world, I love that you're putting serve with sales in there. Because how are you going to serve the world if you're not selling your services? So
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Yeah, very nice, very nice. So what, if anything, overwhelms you, Molly?
Well, what first came to my mind is good ideas. Mm-hmm. I've written an article in the past about good ideas. I'll think I'm behind or think I've got too much to do, and then I'll really look at what's on my plate and realize, oh, what I have here is a pile of good ideas. I don't have to do any of them. And they're not going anywhere.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you choose which ones to follow through on?
Well, usually there will be a natural path forward with one or another. It will just, there's an opening, there's an opportunity. I'll notice that I have the resources. There's also a real difference between a good idea that comes from primarily from my head and from a certain amount of pressure or copying someone. It looks like a good idea.
Uh-huh.
There's a real felt difference between that and what I would call a more inspired good idea. And that inspiration can be very quiet, but it's accompanied by that nice feeling. I know in my bones I can do this thing. This is mine to do, and I have the resources to do it. And hey, why not? That's to me is the one to follow.
Ooh, you make it sound so easy.
Yeah, and it's not always.
Yeah.
The reason it's not, when it's not, is coming from that place of pressure. I can't know which idea is good when I'm trying to choose. Mm-hmm. I wrote a post several weeks ago called "Wisdom is not a member of the debating society." So when I'm debating with myself, I just know that I'm not going to find the answer there. So that's the time to cartoon or cook or go do my books, do something in my business that's not about figuring it out.
Oh, I love that. Figuring it out. Yeah. That's where we get real small.
It is. And I think there are what questions and how questions. And the what question is, what do I want to do? What should I do? What's going on here? Those are insight questions. We don't figure out the answers to what questions. The how questions, it's like, okay, so I'm going to do a 6-month coaching program for women, and I like this, and I want to give them that. Then I might sit down and go, okay, how much am I going to charge based on what I want to deliver? Forgive me, there's a phone in the background.
Oh, I can't even hear it.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. How am I going to market it? There are the technical details there, but at the level of knowing what I want, I'm never going to figure that out. That's not how it happens.
Okay, I want to go, I think this is really important. There's how questions and what questions. And the how questions, if you haven't, this is what I heard you say, if you haven't gone through the what do I want, what do I want my life to look like, and you go straight to the how, it's going to be figuring it all out, being real small. I can feel my energy getting real small there. That comes later.
Yeah. How is about execution? What is about vision? The answers to what questions come from guidance. And that actually applies to how questions to some degree. This is an artificial distinction.
Yes, sure.
But by and large, what do I want to do? What should I offer? Which of my good ideas? What ideas should I follow? Those come from insight. Those answers come from insight.
And when you're really in that clear place, not frazzled, not overwhelmed, in a creative place, calm, taking deep breaths, being the observer, opportunities just open up. I know it's true.
They do.
It's like magic.
When they're not there, it's just not time. Don't yank on the tomato plant to see if it's going to grow.
I've done that with my carrots.
Yeah.
Oops.
I've done it with radishes and beets.
Because you want to know if they're under there.
Exactly.
You want to know, is there anything under there?
Exactly. And that can be unnerving. It's just that over time, I've come to know that trying to know what's not mine to know yet just doesn't work.
There's a balance, though, with having to do some execution and not just be in law of attraction land where, yes, I want it, here it comes.
Absolutely.
And there's been a lot of talk over that over the years, but there's a real balance here, and I think it's an art.
Well, I think it's an understanding that if I want a result out here in the world of form, if I want a mug to drink out of and I'm a potter, I need to throw the darn pot. I can't just sit here in a place of good feeling, going, what do I want? Well, I want a nice blue cup. I have to throw it. I have to build it. If I want results in the world of form for my business, I'm going to need to make offers. Some of them are going to work, some aren't. But if I don't make offers, it's likely nothing's going to happen. So it's not so much a balancing act as it is just realizing that it takes things to make things happen out here. It isn't magic. It isn't magic. I create my reality through thought, but I don't create my teacup through thought. I don't actually create my bank account through thought. My happiness entirely.
Yeah.
So what's freeing is to realize when we understand that happiness and that fundamental success are all an inside job, that nothing out here is actually affecting me. It's my thinking that's affecting me. Then we're free to try stuff. Then we're free to throw a pot. And if it doesn't work, oh well, we throw another one. Then we're free to see what would happen if we offered a pack of 6 massages and threw in some premium service, an assessment, hot oils, whatever.
Right.
And put a nice big price tag on it and offered it especially to a certain group of people, see if it flies. Because there's nothing to lose when we see life this way. Nothing to lose. But what I mean by waiting, it just doesn't work to act from a pressured place no matter what. In terms of my happiness, it just doesn't work for me. Now, and actually it has never worked for me in business. I've made offers like, I really want to create some cash flow, and from a pressured place, I'm going to do, this super duper low end offer and put it together. I never get response to that. Now, I want to create some cash flow. Let's do this in a different mood. That may or may not fly, but it often does, and it doesn't deplete my energy whether it goes or not. And that's really important, so I'm ready to do it again and again. Does that make sense?
It does, because you're not coming at it from a stressed place.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the woo-woo kind of energy, when you are in a stress place, other people just feel it, even if
Absolutely.
It's not consciously.
Exactly. And you know what I'm thinking here about that balance of thought and action is that if we're waiting for a good feeling and it doesn't come and doesn't come and doesn't come, what it's likely is we're actually waiting for something that's a sure thing, which doesn't exist in the world. And so, in other words, I'm afraid it won't work, so I'm not making an offer.
Yeah, we could talk about fear for a minute. I think most people don't always recognize it's fear holding them back.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
And so when people put up an offer, let me help you go through your fear, very often I don't recognize myself. I may have fear, but I don't recognize it. How do we see, what is it that we see inside of ourselves? Or how does that fear show up?
Well, what I don't know if this is true or not, but what occurs to me is when we stop, when we feel blocked from taking action, not just, in a good feeling going, I don't know yet, but when we feel pressured, maybe another word is insecure.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I like insecure a lot more than fear sometimes, because fear feels more active and externally driven. I understand insecurity to be more internally driven, so it's a little easier for me to connect with that.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Because I don't always recognize it when fear comes up until it's, I'm well into it.
Right. And I don't know anymore that it's important to be able to label the emotion. I think what's valuable is to notice, hey, I'm having a crappy feeling. I'm feeling stuck, whatever the reason is.
Overwhelmed, stressed.
Yeah. And when I'm in this crappy feeling, I just know it's not a smart time to make choices, because it's just not efficient.
That's good. When you're in a crappy feeling, don't make choices.
Yeah,
I like
just
that.
don't make choices.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying earlier, if you're in the figuring it out, how am I going to do it? And I know for myself, I get in that kind of that small, I have a million things I have to do. I have my big to-do list. I have to do it. That there's usually some fear or some obstacle or some insecurity that's holding me back from the big picture, so I get stuck in the small stuff.
It could be, I need to choose the right thing to do. It could be, I need to choose something that will work. I need to choose something that won't make people mad at me. It's just, or even I need to choose something.
Right.
And again, I've feel these days, my understanding these days is we don't actually have to know why. We just have the capacity to recognize that, hey, we're temporarily operating at a lower level of consciousness and function. If we back off, and it'll change in either a minute or, in my experience, at most a day. Mm-hmm. It'll change by itself if I keep my hands off it, if I don't wrestle. And so it's not nearly as passive as it sounds to just don't act from a place of crappy feeling. Because when you do that, when you recognize crappy feeling, low quality thought, not smart to move, that realization itself begins to move you towards an awareness of wholeness and well-being. So you're already on your way back to wisdom. It's not like a long-term holding pattern.
That's reassuring.
Yeah, it is reassuring.
Yeah.
And that's what reassures me. I go, because, God, can I afford to keep waiting? It's like, Molly, when you do, the system begins to recover and restore itself to... doesn't really restore you to well-being because that's always there, but it restores you to awareness of it and awareness of wisdom. So, yeah, just back off. It's going to take care of itself.
And I would say, and paint or throw a pot or go for a long walk or move your body or something to get out of the thinking into a flow.
Yeah.
To a more connected.
And when you recognize that you're temporarily experiencing lower quality of thought, usually, and I would say after a few recognitions, you'll just know what to do to help you go back to well-being. So sometimes it'll be meditate. Sometimes it'll be a walk. Sometimes it will be cartooning. And for each of us, there may even be like, I usually do this, I usually do that. What I'm pointing to is that it's not a prescription. Take a walk is a description of something Michelle does that restores her to well-being. It doesn't work as a prescription for everyone.
Right. I like that. Again, no one right answer, no bulletproof, bullet points.
Yes.
You've got a great list on your website. Let me get that. At Shaboominc.com. I'm going to spell it ShabooMinc. Shaboominc.com. People can find you there, and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. But this list is 50 ways to create or restore beauty in your business.
Yes.
I love this list.
Yes.
And it's got all kinds of things in here. Create an attractive email signature, diffuse essential oils, make a list of the biggest time wasters in your day. So we've got really nice self-nurturing things and big things like a list of time wasters in your day. Talk to me about beauty in your business.
First of all, I need to give a nod to a woman from Australia named Philippa Rowlands, whose website is beautifulbusiness.com. And Philippa talks a lot about beauty in business. And there's a quote I actually got from somewhere else, from William Morris, that's at the top of that post, about if there's anything in your home that doesn't... Do you see that there?
Yeah, I was just going to look. If you want a golden rule that will fit everyone, this is it. Have nothing in your houses that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful.
Yes. And I just thought, what if we applied that in business? Wowie. The other thing about beauty is it feels good. When I'm experiencing something beautiful, and it can be something as corny as a daisy, or what, I think dandelions are pretty when I'm not weeding. Beauty brings delight. And when I'm connected with delight, I'm happier, more creative, and wiser.
Nice.
And it also, imagine how much more appealing a beautiful business is, because it's going to have that whole mood of delight and grace around it.
And I don't think you're meaning just feminine, because I know you work with men as much as you
Yes.
work with women.
Yes.
So beauty is really something everybody can be open to.
Right. Some of the words that come to me around beauty are rhythm and balance, proportion, certainly color. As you can tell from my background, I love color. Sometimes I say I could eat it. Um, a vividness. Yeah, definitely masculine. I'm thinking right now of my grandson, who he's now 13, almost 14, and he has a real capacity to appreciate beauty, and has for as long as I can remember in his life. Um, and he's quite the little boy, so definitely can be a masculine thing.
Absolutely. And beauty can come, as your list shows, not just in visual beauty. It can be
Absolutely.
all the senses. How do you nurture, or how do you aliven or awaken
Yeah.
all the different senses?
Yeah. The word that's coming in right now about that is ease and spaciousness, 2 words. I think those often accompany beauty.
And these aren't words that normally accompany business. And to have you bring these things into our business space is refreshing and lightening. It makes me feel lighter to remember these things.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful. Thank you, Molly. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with? Any last words of wisdom? I forgot. I have one more question, but I want to ask you anything else you have first.
Oh, I just would invite people to really, if they've had, like we have had, a sense of a nice feeling or a deeper feeling during this conversation when they listen or watch it, to tune into that and to follow that as a good compass for what to do and how to navigate your business.
Nice. Lovely. Now, on the other side, if you had $1 million to give away that was sitting around, who or what cause or who would you give it to? What do you support outside of business?
Well, definitely the arts. I was just coming back from a 10-minute play series the other night that a local theater had sponsored, and I said to my husband, if I had money, I'd give it to Island Theater.
Oh, lovely. There you go.
And I also support Doctors Without Borders. That's my current favorite charity.
Nice, and very needed right now. So Doctors Without Borders, give them a shout out. And the Island Theater, because you live in one of those cute little islands, I think, right?
Yep.
In the Northwest.
Yep.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I'll look forward to connecting with you online.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.